Hello everyone, we're in the studio today for the second part of our demo on beginning color studies. And for this demo, I'm going to show you how to prepare your cardstock swatch to be used as a background for your color studies. So the first thing you need is a piece of cardstock, and I have a piece here. It's pretty thick, and I've also marked out the size of the swatch I'm going to paint, which is 6 by 6 inches. You have a choice between the 6 by 6 inch size or the 7 by 5 inch size. I've also marked the edge with easy release tape. Now that I've marked out the size that I'm going to use for my color background, another thing to note here would be I have not separated this piece first and then painted it. I've kept it attached to the full piece of cardstock, and I've done this because it's been my experience that as I paint these, it's easier to paint this square while it's attached to the single piece of cardstock and then cut it away later. It just makes for easier handling as you paint, and it keeps the cardstock from buckling or curling up as you apply more and more layers of paint if that's necessary. Okay, now that I have my cardstock prepared, I'm now ready to mix out a color to apply to this background so I can use it for one of my color studies. So at this point, I've put out some leftover burnt umber and some ultramarine blue, and done this so I can just mix it into another chroma dark. So if this is a cool or warm chroma dark, I can then add it to one of my jars after I'm finished and keep stocked up. Okay, so I've just about have this mixed up. So the next step then is to decide what color I want to mix, and I'll do that next. So see you in a moment. Okay, so now I've finished mixing out my chroma dark warm, and I've taken the rest and put it in storage in my chroma dark warm container. Then I've taken a little white and added it to this mixture and created this warm mid-range gray. So now I have a gray and a darkest dark. So the next step is to mix out these prismatic colors into a hue that I want to use to create a chroma gray with, and then put that here. So let's do that next. Okay, I've almost finished the mixture that I wanted to produce with the lemon yellow and the naphthol crimson, and I have made what is looking like an orange hue. It is now much warmer than the pure naphthol crimson, and you can see that separation in temperature when you look at the pure naphthol crimson next to my mixture. This now looks much cooler, and this looks much warmer. So I think this is a good base hue that I'd like to start with. So I'm going to take this hue and add a little bit of white to it and see what that looks like. And then I'm going to start adding either gray or this warm chroma dark. So let's check that out next. Okay, at this part in the demo, I have now added white to that sort of fiery red-orange. The white has turned it into a muted color, so I've gone from a prismatic mixture to a muted color by adding white to the mixture. It is also much lighter in value, and the saturation is not as intense. So you can see here, this is the pure naphthol crimson, and it looks a lot cooler than the mixture of the lemon yellow hue with the naphthol crimson, sort of a fiery warm red. And then you can see this value here at the end, which is lighter in value, and it also has less saturation than both the pure naphthol crimson and the mixture of the lemon yellow hue with the naphthol crimson. So white, as stated in your book, is one way to create a muted color. It is also another way to produce a chromatic gray and a tint. So now that I have my base, I'm now going to think about adding my chroma dark warm or this mid-range gray, and that will give me a chromatic gray that I will be painting in this space for one of my beginning color studies. I'm now ready to start mixing in my chromatic dark into my muted orange, and I'm going to do this slowly by taking a little bit of my muted orange. I'm going to set it over here, and I'm going to mix it out a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of retardant to the mix, and I'm going to take a separate palette knife, and I'm going to get a little bit of darkness and start off slowly. I don't want to add too much at one time, and this is actually quite a bit for the amount that I have here, so I could even go in with a little bit less. And I'm just going to start blending it in, and you can see, right, the effect on this color immediately, and how overpowering that chroma warm dark is in this mixture with my sort of muted orange. And I immediately have sort of a brownish consistency, and that makes sense. So when we think about these two colors being mixed together, you remember I had ultramarine blue mixed with my burnt umber to create this chroma dark warm. And of course, this is orange, and blue and orange are complements. And those two complements also produce brown. Okay, so I'm almost done mixing out my chromatic gray for the orange that I created. And in doing that, I created sort of a brownish chromatic gray. That fits with adding a darker value to that muted orange. Making a chromatic gray from orange, you will see on the color wheel on page 29 that most of those orange hues, when they step down to a chromatic gray, become much darker, and they also become brownish. So I have a brownish red here, and I also have sort of a deeper brown next to it. Both these have my chromatic dark warm added to that basic muted orange mixture. And for this one, I added a little bit more Naphthol Crimson, and you can see that in the look of this mixture. The color has a little bit more redness to it, and I kind of like that, so I think I might go with this one. I'm not sure, but that's part of this process. So as you mix your colors, pay attention when you're mixing for either a chromatic gray, a muted color, or you're just mixing two prismatic colors together, what sort of colors you're seeing, whether they're going to work for your background. Okay, I've reached the end of part 2 for our beginning color studies demonstration, and for this demonstration I went over a little bit about muted colors, chromatic grays, prismatic colors, and obviously colors that would have variations of saturation. So along with part 2 of our demonstration that covered the color mixtures that you will be producing for some of these color studies, I also showed you how to prepare your cardstock so that you could create and mix out your paint and then apply those as color backgrounds for either a 6x6 inch space or a 7x5 inch space. And now that that's completed, we are ready to go into the third part of this demonstration. And this is where I will show you how to apply the color swatches that you have created to be used for some of these different beginning color studies. All right, so at this point we'll move on to part 3, and I'll go over some tips and elements of craftsmanship that should help make this project go a little bit more smoothly as you begin to start creating your color studies. All right, see you then.